The car is found just after dusk, on a narrow stretch of road that bends through the trees of rural New Hampshire. Snowbanks line both sides, pushed high by plows earlier that day, their edges already hardening in the cold. The road is quiet, no streetlights, no nearby houses in view, just the hum of winter air and the dark outline of woods pressing close. The vehicle sits at an angle, its front end pointed slightly toward the eastbound lane, its rear tires closer to the snowbank than the center line. It is not deeply damaged. The windshield is intact. The headlights are off. One of the airbags has deployed. The engine is no longer running, but the hood is still warm. Inside, the scene is orderly. The doors are closed. The windows are up. The keys are not in the ignition. On the driver's seat rests a dark coat. The interior light is off, but a flashlight beam reveals personal items still inside. Textbooks stacked neatly, loose papers, a compact disc case. In the back seat, a box of belongings is wedged against the door, as if it had been packed deliberately. Nothing appears scattered. Nothing suggests a struggle. Outside the car, there are no visible footprints leading away from the road. Snow covers the shoulder in a smooth, uninterrupted layer. The surrounding trees stand dense and silent, their branches heavy and unmoving. A nearby resident reports hearing the sound of a collision minutes earlier, followed by a car idling briefly, then going quiet. When police arrive, the driver is already gone. There is no note left behind. There is no phone found at the scene. The gas tank is nearly empty, but not completely. The car appears locked. What stands out most is what has not been taken. A wallet remains inside. Credit cards, identification, clothing suited for the cold. Items someone would normally bring if they planned to leave on foot in freezing temperatures. Instead, the car looks paused, not abandoned in haste, but left in place, as though the driver expected to come back shortly, as though this stop was meant to be temporary. And that raises the question investigators still cannot answer. What happened in those few minutes on the side of that dark road that made someone leave everything behind, believing they would return? And never did? Years have passed since the abandoned car was first documented in police logs, photographed under flashing lights, and towed from the side of the road. Since then, thousands of missing person cases have been reported across the country. Most follow familiar patterns. Many are resolved quickly. Some are explained by later evidence. Others, tragically, are not. This case remains different. From the beginning, investigators established a clear and unusually tight timeline. Emergency calls were logged within minutes of the incident. A responding officer arrived shortly afterward. Independent witnesses placed the vehicle at that exact location during a narrow window of time. There is no broad gap where hours are unaccounted for. No long delay before authorities were alerted. The moment the car stopped, attention followed. Police reports confirm that the scene was examined promptly. The vehicle was processed. Its contents were inventoried. The surrounding area was searched on foot and later by expanded teams. Weather conditions were documented. Statements were taken from nearby residents. These facts are not disputed. They are part of the official record. And yet, despite this early response, the outcome remains unresolved. What sets this case apart is not the absence of information, but the way the information refuses to align. In many disappearances, the central mystery lies in what is missing. A lack of witnesses, an unclear timeline, an unknown last location. Here, those elements are largely accounted for. The driver's last known movements are unusually well documented. The location is precise. The condition of the vehicle is known in detail. Still, no explanation fits cleanly. The abandoned car itself continues to challenge assumptions. It was not destroyed. It was not concealed. It was left in open view on a public road. Inside were items people typically keep close when they intend to travel or relocate. Outside, there were no clear indicators of direction or departure. Official reports note the absence of physical evidence suggesting violence at the scene, while also noting the absence of evidence suggesting a planned disappearance. This combination is rare. In most cases, abandoned vehicles fall into clearer categories. Either they are linked to criminal activity, supported by physical indicators, or they point toward voluntary departure, supported by planning behavior. This case does neither. Law enforcement documents describe a scene that appears incomplete, as though a crucial step occurred somewhere else or not at all. Over the years, the case has remained active in records, revisited periodically as new methods, tips, or leads emerge. It has been reviewed by multiple agencies, files have been reopened, witness statements have been re-examined against the original timeline. Each review confirms the same conclusion: the known facts have not changed, and no single theory accounts for all of them. That persistence matters. It matters because unresolved cases with strong documentation challenge the limits of investigative certainty. They reveal how even rapid response, cooperative witnesses, and preserved evidence can still fail to answer the most basic question: where did the person go? It also matters because the circumstances resist closure. There is no confirmed sighting beyond the scene, no verified financial activity, no confirmed contact. The official record ends where the road does. And yet, buried within those same reports is a detail that has never been fully explained. Not a dramatic revelation, not a hidden message, just a small documented inconsistency, one that appears ordinary at first glance, but quietly undermines every explanation offered so far. It is still there, in the paperwork, and until it is understood, this case remains open. Before the disappearance became a case file, a timeline, and a set of unanswered questions, the person at the center of it lived an ordinary, structured life, shaped by routines and expectations. The days leading up to that winter evening were not marked by dramatic shifts or visible disruptions. According to those who knew them, life moved forward in familiar patterns. They were known to keep a full schedule. Weekdays were shaped by work and academic responsibilities, often beginning early and ending late. Mornings followed predictable rhythms, waking at a consistent hour, preparing for the day without much variation, leaving with what was needed and little excess. There was nothing hurried or careless about these routines. They were methodical, sometimes even rigid, the kind of habits formed by someone used to balancing multiple obligations at once. At work and in class, they were described as reliable, not loud, not withdrawn. Someone who showed up, completed tasks, and generally stayed under the radar. Instructors and supervisors later noted steady performance rather than sudden decline. Assignments were completed. Shifts were worked. There were no documented warnings, no unexplained absences piling up, no signs that responsibilities were being abandoned. Outside of structured obligations, life was equally unremarkable in the truest sense of the word. They maintained regular contact with family, checking in as expected, discussing practical matters rather than emotional confessions. Conversations were brief but consistent. Plans for the near future were discussed casually. Work schedules, school deadlines, routine logistics. Nothing suggested finality or detachment. Friendships followed a similar pattern. A small circle, not expansive, but stable. Social interactions were ordinary. Shared meals, short conversations, passing updates. There were no goodbye gestures, no sudden reconnections, no distribution of belongings. Nothing that would later stand out as symbolic or intentional. Financially, their situation reflected the realities of someone building a future rather than escaping one. Accounts were active. Transactions aligned with daily living. Bills were paid. There were no large withdrawals, no abrupt closures, no steps taken to sever financial ties. Documents later reviewed by investigators show continuity, not preparation for disappearance. Even the plans made shortly before that day were practical and immediate in nature. Tasks to be completed, places to be reached, commitments scheduled within days, not weeks or months. These were not abstract goals or long-term aspirations, but near-term responsibilities that assumed ongoing presence. Those closest to them have consistently said the same thing in interviews conducted years apart. Nothing felt off. There was no notable shift in tone, no emotional withdrawal, no dramatic statements about needing to get away or start over. Stress existed, as it does in most lives, balancing work, education, and expectation. But it was not unusual or escalating in a way that raised concern. Importantly, there was no effort to simplify or erase their life. Belongings remained where they had always been. Personal items were not given away. Digital and physical traces of daily living remained intact. The routines that defined their days were still in place, unbroken, right up until the moment they were interrupted. This is what makes understanding the disappearance so difficult. When investigators and analysts look backward, they do not see a trajectory toward vanishing. They see continuity, momentum. a life in motion, oriented forward by default rather than away from itself. The person who left home that day did so as they had many times before, expecting to return, expecting the routines to resume, expecting tomorrow to look much like today. The last known day begins without urgency. According to verified records, the morning unfolds as expected. There are no reports of missed alarms, no delayed departures, no deviations from routine. Communications from earlier in the day are brief and practical, consistent with prior patterns. Nothing in tone or content suggests distress or uncertainty. These exchanges are documented and time-stamped, forming the first fixed points on the timeline. By late morning, the missing person is confirmed to have been at a known location, tied to work or academic responsibilities. Attendance records and witness statements align. There is no dispute about this portion of the day. Interactions are described as normal. Tasks are completed. Conversations are unremarkable. This period ends without incident. Early afternoon marks the next confirmed movement. Receipts, electronic records, or surveillance footage place the individual at a public location, a store, a campus area, or another routine stop. The timing is narrow and supported by independent sources. No unusual purchases are made. No visible signs of agitation are reported. The person appears alone, focused, and unhurried. From there, the timeline continues forward, still intact. Later in the afternoon, communication is again documented. A call or message is sent and received. The content is ordinary, related to logistics or immediate plans. There is no indication that this interaction was meant to be final. Investigators have confirmed that the communication ends normally, without abrupt cutoff or unresolved exchange. Up to this point, the day remains consistent with every day before it. As evening approaches, the record begins to thin. There is a confirmed departure from the last known indoor location. The time is approximate, but supported by witness recollection and contextual evidence. Weather conditions are noted in official reports. Road conditions are described as difficult but passable. The missing person is believed to have been driving alone. This belief is supported by the lack of evidence indicating a passenger. No confirmed sightings place anyone else in the vehicle at any time that day. No communications suggest a planned meeting. This remains an assumption, but one grounded in the absence of contradicting facts. The next verified point is the most critical. A witness reports seeing the vehicle on the road later that evening. The sighting is brief but specific. The location matches where the car will later be found. The timing aligns with subsequent events. Investigators consider this sighting credible and include it in the official timeline. Shortly after, emergency services receive a call reporting a vehicle off the road. This call is logged. The time is precise. The description matches the car in question. There is no mention of a person nearby, no indication of injury, just a vehicle stopped at an unusual angle. When law enforcement arrives, the driver is gone. This is where certainty ends. From the moment the car is discovered, every detail is documented, but nothing bridges the gap between presence and absence. There are no confirmed sightings of the missing person after the reported incident. No verified communications. No physical evidence that clearly establishes a direction of travel. Search efforts begin quickly. The surrounding area is examined. The road is checked in both directions. Nearby residences are contacted. Nothing adds a new data point to the timeline. Investigators note what is known and what is not. It is known that the car stopped where it did. It is known that the driver was there moments earlier. It is known that personal items were left behind. What is not known is how much time passed between the car coming to rest and the driver leaving it. Minutes or moments. Whether anyone else was present. Whether the driver left the road willingly or under pressure. The timeline, once precise and steady, collapses into a single, unresolved interval. A short span of time on a dark road, unaccounted for. And within that narrow window lies one unexplained moment. A decision or interruption so brief it left no trace, yet so significant it erased every certainty that came before it. The discovery begins not with urgency, but with routine. In the early evening hours, a local resident notices a vehicle stopped along a familiar stretch of road. This road is not heavily traveled, especially at night, but it is not remote enough to ignore entirely. The resident has lived nearby long enough to recognize when something is out of place. A car angled oddly near the shoulder is unusual, but not unheard of during winter months. The observation is brief at first. The vehicle's hazard lights are not flashing. The headlights are off. The engine sound, if there was one, is not immediately apparent. Snowbanks frame the road closely, narrowing the shoulder and making any stop there conspicuous. Minutes later, after the resident determines the car has not moved, a call is placed to local authorities. The time of that call is logged precisely. When the first officer arrives, the car is still there, positioned exactly as described. Its front end faces toward the lane of travel, while the rear rests closer to the snowbank, suggesting a sudden stop rather than a deliberate pullover. The vehicle does not appear heavily damaged. There is minor front-end impact, consistent with contact against snow or a low roadside object. There is no shattered glass on the roadway. No debris field extending outward. The car is silent. The officer approaches carefully. No one is inside. The doors are closed. Later documentation confirms that at least one door appears locked. The windows are fully raised. The trunk is closed. There is no movement nearby. Inside the vehicle, the scene is calm and contained. On the driver's seat lies a coat, folded or placed rather than dropped. Personal belongings are visible but undisturbed. Papers rest where they would normally be kept. Books are stacked. A compact disc case is present. In the back seat, a box of items suggests ongoing use or recent packing, but not abandonment. Nothing appears rifled through. Nothing is scattered across the floor. The dashboard shows no active warning lights. The keys are not in the ignition. A search of the interior reveals items most people do not leave behind if they intend to disappear. Identification is present. Financial cards remain. Clothing appropriate for cold weather is still inside the car. There is no packed bag prepared for travel on foot. No note. No message explaining absence. Outside the vehicle, the ground tells a restrained story. Snow covers the shoulder and the embankment beyond. It is not freshly fallen, but it is undisturbed. There are no clear footprints leading away from the driver's door. No drag marks. No obvious path into the woods. The snowbanks are firm and high enough that climbing over them would likely leave visible disturbance. None is noted in the official reports. The surrounding area is examined carefully. The road is checked in both directions. The nearby woods are scanned with flashlights. The immediate perimeter yields nothing that extends the scene beyond the car itself. No dropped items, no signs of struggle, no indication of injury. As additional officers arrive, the documentation continues. Photographs are taken. The interior is cataloged, the exterior is examined again. Weather conditions are recorded. The temperature is noted. The lack of visibility is noted. At no point does the scene expand. Eventually, the decision is made to tow the vehicle. Before that happens, the inventory is finalized. Everything present is noted. Everything absent is also noted. Missing from the scene is the person who was driving moments earlier. Missing is any explanation for where they went. Missing is any physical trace pointing clearly in one direction or another. What remains is a car that does not behave like evidence typically does. It does not support a clear accident scenario. The damage is too minor. It does not support a planned disappearance. Too much was left behind. It does not clearly support a crime. There is no visible violence. Instead, it contradicts all of them, quietly and simultaneously. The car sits as a complete object in an incomplete story. Intact, orderly, and unmoving, offering just enough detail to rule things out and not enough to explain what actually happened. As the years pass without resolution, explanations tend to settle into familiar categories. Investigators, analysts, and observers often return to the same three possibilities when trying to make sense of an abandoned vehicle and a missing person: an accident, a voluntary disappearance, or foul play. Each theory offers a way to organize the known facts. Each appears at first to provide answers, and each ultimately falls short. Accident. The accident theory is often the first to be considered, largely because it aligns with what was initially reported. A vehicle was found at an angle along the road. One airbag had deployed. The weather was cold. Road conditions were challenging. From a distance, this looks like a routine winter incident, a minor crash followed by confusion or disorientation. In this scenario, the driver may have exited the vehicle to assess damage, seek help, or move to a safer location. exposure to cold, darkness, or terrain could have contributed to further harm. The absence of the driver would then be explained by environmental factors rather than human intent. At first glance, this theory fits the setting, but the details complicate it. Police reports describe the damage to the car as limited. The vehicle was still operable. There was no evidence that it had gone off the road at high speed. No debris trail, no signs of a rollover. The airbags deployed, but not in a way consistent with a severe impact. More importantly, the environment around the car does not support a typical accident aftermath. Snowbanks were high and firm, yet undisturbed. There were no footprints leading away from the vehicle, no signs of a fall or injury near the road. Searches conducted shortly after discovery did not locate the driver nearby. If the driver left the vehicle on foot due to injury or confusion, the lack of physical trace remains difficult to explain. The accident theory accounts for why the car stopped where it did, but not for how the driver vanished without leaving evidence behind. Voluntary disappearance. The second theory proposes that the driver chose to leave deliberately. On the surface, this explanation can seem compelling. Adults do sometimes walk away from their lives. An abandoned car can be a symbolic breakpoint. The absence of a body or confirmed crime allows for the possibility of intentional disappearance. This theory gains traction when other explanations fail. However, when investigators examine the missing person's life before that day, the idea of a voluntary disappearance became harder to sustain. There was no pattern of withdrawal, no long-term planning, no financial preparation, no goodbye messages, no effort to erase or simplify their life. The car itself also works against this explanation. Identification, financial cards, and personal items remained inside. Clothing appropriate for the weather was left behind. There was no packed bag suggesting readiness to travel on foot. No transportation arranged beyond that location. Voluntary disappearances typically involve preparation, even if minimal. This scene shows interruption, not intent. The theory explains why the person was not found nearby, but it fails to explain why someone would abandon both mobility and resources at the same time. Foul play. The third theory is that another person was involved. This explanation attempts to resolve the most troubling element of the case, the sudden absence of the driver. In this scenario, the car becomes a meeting point rather than a stopping point. The driver could have encountered someone, known or unknown, leading to an event that removed them from the scene. This theory can account for the lack of footprints, the absence of voluntary preparation, and the abruptness of the disappearance. It also aligns with the idea that the car was left behind, not by choice, but by circumstance. But here, too, the evidence resists alignment. There are no signs of a struggle at the scene, no disturbed snow, no damaged interior, no witnesses reporting another vehicle stopping at that time, no confirmed communications arranging a meeting, no forensic evidence pointing to violence. Law enforcement reports note that the area was quiet, but not isolated enough for a major incident to go completely unnoticed. The timeline is narrow. The window for an encounter is brief. Foul play explains the disappearance, but not the lack of physical indicators that usually accompany it. Where the theories leave us. Each theory addresses part of the mystery. An accident explains the stopped car. A voluntary disappearance explains the absence of the person. Foul play explains the suddenness, but none of them explains everything. Each creates new questions even as it resolves others. Each depends on assumptions that the documented facts do not fully support. And because the car contradicts all three in different ways, it remains the central obstacle to resolution. The vehicle does not behave the way it should under any single explanation. That is why, decades later, the case remains open. Not because there are no theories, but because none of them can stand on the evidence alone. For the family, time did not stop when the disappearance occurred. It continued, steadily and without pause, carrying them forward into days that demanded decisions, routines, and responsibilities, all while leaving the central question unanswered. In the earliest weeks, their lives were shaped by anticipation. Phone calls were answered quickly. Every unfamiliar number carried possibility. Each knock at the door introduced a moment of suspended breath. Days were structured around updates from law enforcement, search efforts, and the hope that new information would arrive before nightfall. As weeks became months, that expectation changed form. There were no definitive conclusions to absorb, no certainty to mourn. Instead, there was a constant recalibration, learning how to live with an absence that had no clear boundaries. The missing person was neither fully present nor fully gone. Conversations shifted from when they come back to if we hear something, without any moment marking that transition. Holidays arrived on schedule, birthdays passed, family gatherings continued, altered subtly but permanently. A chair remained empty, sometimes intentionally left that way, sometimes avoided without discussion. Traditions were followed, but never quite intact. Every milestone carried a quiet question alongside it. Would this be the year something finally changed? Over time, the nature of the waiting evolved. The urgency faded, replaced by vigilance. The family learned to exist in a state of readiness, not active searching, but not letting go. They remained reachable. Records were kept. Information was preserved. The case was never allowed to drift entirely into the past. The uncertainty exerted a different kind of weight than confirmed loss. Without answers, there was no clear emotional direction. Hope could not be fully released, but it could not be sustained at full strength either. It hovered, reshaping itself around logic, probability, and time. Decisions that might seem straightforward to others became complicated. How do you speak about someone whose status is unresolved? How do you mark the passing of years without acknowledging what those mean? There was no language that fit cleanly. Every choice carried the risk of implying a conclusion that had never been reached. As official investigations slowed, the family became the primary custodians of memory. They remembered details others no longer asked about. They corrected timelines when small inaccuracies appeared. They carried the responsibility of keeping the person present in a world that gradually moved on. The waiting was not dramatic. It was quiet and cumulative. It appeared in moments of hesitation, in the way plans were discussed with conditional phrasing, in the careful avoidance of certain assumptions. It was present in the long pauses before answering simple questions, and in the restraint shown when others sought closure on their behalf. What made the waiting especially heavy was its lack of resolution. Grief, when defined, eventually reshapes itself. Uncertainty does not. It remains open-ended, resisting adaptation. It demands attention without offering relief. Years later, the family still lives alongside that uncertainty, not as a daily crisis, but as a permanent background presence, a question that never resolves, a narrative that never reaches its final sentence. They do not wait actively anymore, but they have never stopped waiting. Today, the case remains part of the official record. Law enforcement agencies involved have confirmed that it has never been formally closed. It has been reviewed multiple times over the years, revisited as investigative standards evolved and as new techniques became available. Each review has relied on the same foundation: the original reports, photographs, witness statements, and physical evidence collected at the scene. That evidence still exists. The vehicle was processed and documented. Inventories of its contents were preserved. Timelines were recorded with precision uncommon in many missing person cases. Witness statements were taken close to the time of the incident, before memory could soften or shift. These materials remain accessible to investigators tasked with periodic re-examination. What has changed is not the evidence, but the context around it. Investigators today describe the case as stable, but unresolved. No new verified sightings have emerged. No confirmed forensic breakthroughs have altered the known timeline. Advances in technology have been applied where possible, but technology cannot create data where none exists. The narrow window of time at the center of the disappearance remains just as narrow now as it was then. Official statements over the years have been consistent in tone. Authorities acknowledge the unusual nature of the case, particularly the condition and contents of the vehicle. They confirm that no theory has been definitively supported or ruled out. The absence of conclusive evidence has prevented closure, but it has also prevented misclassification. The case sits in a careful balance. It is not dormant, but it is not active in the traditional sense. It exists in files, databases, and periodic discussions, waiting for a development that has not yet arrived. Investigators have noted that any meaningful progress would likely depend on a single new piece of information, a witness coming forward, a forgotten detail resurfacing, or evidence found beyond the original scene. Until then, the facts remain unchanged. A person was last seen going about an ordinary day. A vehicle was found abandoned in plain view. Personal belongings were left behind. No trace clearly explains what followed. The passage of time has not resolved these contradictions. It has only made them more firmly defined. As the final minutes close, the case does not end with a conclusion, but with the same quiet uncertainty that has followed it from the beginning. All theories pause at the same point. All timelines stop at the same moment. And it leaves one question that still matters, because answering it would reshape everything that came before. What happened in the moments between the car coming to rest and the driver walking away, leaving no trace behind?